Hey folks, I know I'm just an old guy talking about some mysteries, but please leave a like and subscribe before we start. Let's enjoy today's video. Now, today we're diving deep into something that has baffled historians, magic enthusiasts, and mystery lovers alike: Houdini's lost diaries. As many of you know, Harry Houdini is considered one of the greatest magicians to ever live. His name is synonymous with escape acts, illusions, and defying death. But what if I told you that there are hidden secrets, unsolved mysteries, and previously unknown stories buried in a collection of lost diaries that Houdini kept throughout his life? Before we get into the juicy details, let's take a brief look at Houdini's legacy. Born Eric Wise in 1874 in Budapest, Hungary, Houdini became famous for his death-defying acts. Whether it was escaping from straitjackets, water tanks, or even locked cells, Houdini's performances defied the very laws of nature and captured the imagination of the public. He was fearless, a man of action, but behind the bravado and public persona, Houdini was a complex individual, a thinker, an investigator, and perhaps most surprisingly, an amateur detective. What makes this whole mystery even more fascinating is the fact that Houdini kept extensive journals throughout his life. Now, this isn't just a few scribbled notes. These were detailed diaries that chronicled his personal thoughts, his thoughts on magic, his travels, and, believe it or not, his investigations into the supernatural and the paranormal. But what happened to these diaries? Why is it that some of the most important records of Houdini's life and work vanished, never to be seen again? Now, to answer that question, we need to dive into the historical context. Houdini was an incredibly curious man. While the world knew him as a magician, he also spent much of his life trying to debunk mediums, psychics, and other purported supernatural phenomena. He even had a personal vendetta against people who claimed to communicate with the dead, after losing his beloved mother, Cecilia, in 1913. This loss had a profound impact on Houdini. He was deeply affected by his mother's death and the hope that there was some way to connect with her again. He spent years trying to contact her through spiritualists, but when his efforts were fruitless, Houdini became one of the most vocal critics of the spiritualism movement. But here's the thing: Houdini didn't just criticize spiritualists, he went undercover. He attended seances, interviewed mediums, and even used his knowledge of magic tricks to expose the fraudulent practices of many so-called psychics. His investigations were meticulous, and during his career, he exposed hundreds of fraudulent spiritualists, bringing public attention to the dark side of the paranormal. So, where do the diaries come in? It's rumored that these diaries contain not just accounts of his magical acts, but detailed investigations into the supernatural. Some even speculate that the diaries were filled with notes on his quest to understand what lies beyond life and death. But for reasons still unknown, many of these diaries disappeared after Houdini's death in 1926. Now, let's talk about the legend of Houdini's lost diaries. These diaries were believed to have been carefully hidden, possibly out of fear that their contents would tarnish his public image. You see, Houdini was very protective of his legacy. He wanted to be remembered as a magician, not necessarily as someone who delved into dark, mystical realms. So, some historians believe that Houdini might have kept the diaries secret to protect his reputation, or perhaps he just wanted to make sure that some of his most personal and profound thoughts remained private. The first big clue came years after Houdini's death. In the 1930s, it was reported that a box of personal items belonging to Houdini was found in an old storage facility in New York. Among these items were letters, photographs, and what seemed to be fragments of his diaries. But, strangely, some of the most important volumes were missing. The missing diaries were thought to contain not just his reflections on his work, but also his personal research into the supernatural. What happened to these volumes? Were they lost or destroyed? No one knows for sure. There are various theories surrounding the missing diaries. Some believe they were hidden by Houdini's widow, Bess Houdini, after his death. Bess was known to have been deeply affected by his passing, and there's speculation that she kept the diaries out of respect for his privacy or to preserve his legacy. Others argue that the diaries were intentionally destroyed to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. But the most intriguing theory, one that continues to fascinate mystery enthusiasts, is that the lost diaries still exist. Some believe that they were hidden by Houdini himself during his lifetime, possibly even as part of an elaborate final magic trick. Perhaps Houdini, who was known for his elaborate and mysterious performances, staged the disappearance of his diaries as part of a larger puzzle, something to be solved by future generations of magicians, historians, or adventurers. The problem with uncovering the truth about these diaries is the lack of hard evidence. Despite numerous attempts by researchers, collectors, and even Houdini's family members to locate the missing diaries, nothing substantial has ever been found. Every lead seems to turn into a dead end. That's not to say that people aren't still searching, though. In fact, some of the world's most famous magicians and Houdini experts are still on the hunt for the missing diaries, hoping to unlock the final chapter of Houdini's life and work. One of the most tantalizing pieces of evidence that has surfaced is a letter that Houdini wrote to a friend in 1924. In this letter, he mentioned that he had hidden a collection of his most personal thoughts and secrets in a safe location, and that one day, when the time was right, someone would come across it. Could this letter be a clue about the missing diaries? And if so, where is the safe location Houdini referred to? Another possibility is that the diaries were never meant to be found. Some scholars suggest that Houdini may have deliberately set out to create a mystery around his own life and legacy. He was, after all, a master of illusion, a man who thrived on creating puzzles and mysteries that captivated the world. Perhaps the missing diaries are part of Houdini's final act, one that continues to baffle and intrigue us even today. In the years following Houdini's death, many people claim to have found pieces of his diaries. Some of these purported fragments were later proven to be forgeries, while others were deemed to be actual writings from the master magician himself. But without confirmation, the search for the lost diaries remains a compelling mystery. So what are we left with? We have the legacy of Houdini's public feats, his incredible escapes, and his unflinching pursuit of truth in the face of fraud. And yet we also have the enigma of what might have been contained in those lost pages. Was Houdini truly just a magician, or was there something more to his quest for knowledge? Did he discover something beyond the magic tricks he performed on stage? And most importantly, will we ever find those lost diaries and uncover the secrets they hold? The story of Houdini's lost diaries continues to spark debates, investigations, and intrigue to this day. It's a mystery that is far from being solved, but it's a mystery that reminds us that even the most famous of historical figures may have left behind secrets. Secrets that have yet to be discovered. Until next time, keep exploring the unknown and come back for another Mystery of Humanity.